Hello readers, I'm Amy and I'm your nonfiction feminist. I am back with another haul. This one is my summer haul. I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. The first two piles that I have here, these ones are my haul for my Minnesota vacation in June, and this one is my book depository haul. I'm going to link my Minnesota vacation vlog in the description box below because I have already discussed these books in a kind of like mini haul thing that I did, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but I will go over them really quickly. I have yet another copy of Dracula because that's totally what I need when I already own like 4 versions of this. I will try and go over my different copies in October as like part of a Halloween thing. Obviously, Amadeus's butt is more important than I am. I have 2 Caitlin Doughty books. I'm not sure if I'm going to read her upcoming book because it is geared more towards kids, but I might pick up a copy of it anyways because she's awesome and I'm a deathling now. I have Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. I read this before purchasing. I absolutely loved it. It is hilarious. This is From Here to Eternity, Traveling the World to Find the Good Death. I have not read this one yet. I will probably get to this one for Nonfiction November. The Psychopath Test by Jon Ronson. I went over this in a previous wrap-up. I liked the topic, which was this guy comes up with this test for psychopaths. Jon Ronson attends a conference where he learns how to use the test to find out who's a psychopath. Then he goes into a conversation of self-diagnosing and of diagnosing others, and also a conversation on the DSM, which is kind of the Bible for psychology, and how similar to using like WebMD or something, we also use the DSM not only for therapists to diagnose others, but for us to diagnose ourselves, which isn't the best way to do things if we're not professionals. So the topic was really good. His writing, I'm not a huge fan of. I would have preferred this topic coming from a professional in the field rather than a journalist. I did start reading So You've Been Publicly Shamed, and I just wasn't getting into it, and again, I think it's a lot to do with his writing style. I love his topics, I just don't know that he's an author that I'm really going to get into. Women Talking by Miriam Toews. This is an Own Voices novel about Mennonite women and this terrible event that happened to this specific colony. I will link my review down below. I highly recommend watching that review because this was a completely amazing novel. I am so in love with it. It is one of my favorite books this year. I just found this at a little local bookstore in Minnesota, and it was just phenomenal. Next, we have the book depository books, which I went over at the end of my Minnesota vlog because I got them pretty much right when I got back from vacation. The Uses of Enchantment, The Meaning and Importance of Fairy Tales. I have seen this around on Goodreads. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I'm really hoping to get to this in Nonfiction November, but I'm not sure how fast it's going to go because it has very, very tiny type. But I'm super, super excited for this. Villette and Shirley are both by Charlotte Bronte. I finished Anne Bronte's 2 books. I read Agnes Grey and then I read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I thoroughly enjoyed both. I think Anne Bronte is a very underrated Bronte sister. I am next going to work on Charlotte Bronte, and then I will be moving on to Wuthering Heights. I hear it's the most difficult to read of the books. I have tried to read it a couple of times before and just wasn't in the mood, didn't get past the first couple pages. But that was also back in high school, and I'm finding books that I didn't like in high school I kind of like now, which not sure what that says about books that they taught in my high school growing up. But I have not read these yet. I will be getting to these eventually, which reminds me, this summer I also got... I already had a copy of Wuthering Heights, but my mom gifted me a copy that matches my Barnes & Noble paperbacks, which is really, really sweet of her, so I went ahead and brought my other one to donation and put this on my shelf. So this is a copy of Wuthering Heights that I will be reading once I get to Emily Bronte. I will not be reading Emily's poetry. I'm not a huge poetry person. I can link my I don't read that poetry video down below. I'm more of an insta poetry person. The literary poetry, I just don't comprehend. But again, that's a different topic. The video is down below if you want to know more of my opinions on that. My cat's watching me from the window. I have Stephen King's Misery here. I did read this. The movie wasn't that great to me. Kathy Bates still did an amazing job, but the movie as a whole and the way it was put together just missed out on a lot of the abuse that happens in this novel, and therefore I feel like it just missed out on a lot of the stage setting. But the book was pretty good. I did not like the beginning of it. A lot of it, he's just really, the main character's drugged up and you don't really know anything that's going on. So the first 20 pages in this I could have done without, or at least had them condensed into maybe 5 pages. But as a whole, this was a good Stephen King book. My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. This was, I want to say, the 3rd book that I've read by her, because I read Rebecca first, and then it was this one and Don't Look Now and Other Stories, which was the first full short story collection that I absolutely loved. I'm not usually a slow burn book kind of person, but Daphne du Maurier is very slow burn and also very gothic thriller, and I just absolutely love her. My Cousin Rachel was a little too slow for me. I did like Rebecca better, but it's not a murder mystery, but it is like a death mystery. I think we eventually find out how the main character's cousin died, but it was all very back and forth. It was very mysterious, but I loved this. I can't wait to get more of these copies from Book Depository. Yeah, I loved this. And lastly, for Book Depository, it was Towelhead. These are some of my post-it notes on Towelhead. These are some of my comments on Towelhead. I'm not going to go into this in this video. Sometime this month, I will be filming a full review of Towelhead and why I think it is so important, and why I also wouldn't recommend it to most people, but I loved this. Again, it's one of my favorites this year. Whenever I do get around to the review, I will try and come back and link the review down below. If I haven't done that, you can check on my review playlist to learn more about Towelhead once I upload the review. So that is it for the Minnesota vacation vlog books. I think there's more details in my vacation vlog, again, linked below. So next, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick little Amazon book haul. My husband studied Japanese whenever we were in college together, meaning Japanese culture and literature and history and language, and one of the books that he read was Ring. The movie The Ring is based off of Ring. I'm not sure why they added the. Whenever I read the book, I wasn't sure how they got from point A to point B. Not that I watched the whole movie of The Ring. I only watched the first 5 minutes and I was totally creeped out and never finished it. That said, I don't understand how they got from point A to point B. I did really, really love this book, even though the translation was less than great. The pacing was really thrown off with the translation. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed the book. And I recently learned that there are 3 sequels. I only got 2 of them because the 4th one sounded like it was pretty much completely separate from the series. And it kind of sounds like the 3rd one is also a little separate. But I went ahead and got the following 2 books, Spirals and Loop. Also, I just really love these covers. Just all those little lines. I think it's awesome. So I'm going to be reading, I'm going to reread the first one and reread the first book, read the following 2 books in October. I really want to focus on dark and creepy stuff. I've been in a dark and creepy mood, so I'm really looking forward to my October reads. And then let's go ahead and do, one of my piles just fell over. These books are from The Bookseller, which is a local used bookstore here where I live. I got The Mennonite in a Little Black Dress about a month or two before I left for Los Angeles. I read this book in Los Angeles and I enjoyed it. It's a memoir. Mennonite woman grows up, gets married. Her man eventually leaves her for a guy that he met on gay.com, and she returns home to kind of get her life back together. It didn't. I was a little confused on what happened when. There wasn't really a strict timeline for this book. It definitely was not a favorite memoir of mine, but that said, I did enjoy it. It was a really light read. I could read it a couple pages at a time during my vacation. I didn't have to read it in big chunks or anything to understand what was going on. It was funny. I am unhauling this because I don't think I'm ever going to read this again. And that was also in my unhaul video that I uploaded a couple days ago. I have Reading Lolita in Tehran. I have a copy of Lolita. I read like half of it in high school or college. My reading tastes have changed a bit since then, so I am going to try reading the whole thing, and then I want to follow it up with Reading Lolita in Tehran. This is a teacher in the Islamic Republic gathering together her most committed female students to read forbidden Western classics. This just sounds completely amazing. I'm hoping to get to Lolita and Reading Lolita in Tehran before January, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen at this point. I pretty much have my books lined out for the rest of the year, but we will see. And I have 2 more Stephen King books to add to my husband's Stephen King shelf. Like half of these he had when we met, and the other half I've just gotten as we've gone on. I found Just After Sunset, which is not actually a Stephen King collection that I've heard of before. It's a short story collection. I may or may not read this. I'm like really 50-50 on Stephen King. I either love what he writes or I hate it. I do like, however, if you can see that right here, it's got this shine to it that really adds to the sun photo. It's cool. I also picked up Bag of Bones. Again, I don't know that I'm going to read this. It doesn't sound like his typical horror stuff. Stephen King is not just a horror writer. He does horror, fantasy, westerns, just dramas, all sorts of stuff. I tend to like his horror a little better. I might read this, I might not. This is over 700 pages of book, which is a little out of my range with what I generally read, but we will see. And lastly, I have my Friends of the Library book haul, because I volunteer for my local Friends of the Library. I am going to start off with by far the most controversial book that I own. A couple months ago, I think it was actually the April book sale, I found a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf. I have kind of a fascination with World War II. I love reading the fiction and the non-fiction about the war, and I've always been interested on what exactly he was saying in this book. It's one of those, I'm curious. I want to know what exactly he had to say. And recently I found a much nicer looking copy. This has like a rough kind of paper cover. I just thought it looked prettier than this one, and I like pretty books, so I'm going to donate this and keep this. I didn't include this in my unhaul because I'm still keeping the book, just a different copy of the book. If I ever end up getting through this, I will certainly probably end up doing a dedicated review. My husband is also interested in reading this, so if I can get him to read through the whole thing and get myself to read through the whole thing, I think it would be really cool to just have a discussion on what all he was saying in his book, and if he comes across in his book the same way he did as a speaker. He was a very charismatic speaker. I'm not sure how he was as a writer, but I think this would be interesting to see. I personally don't really have much of a problem with reading problematic authors. I will talk more about problematic authors in a future video, because that's always an interesting conversation. Now for my much less controversial books, I have Speak. I originally watched the movie, I found out it was a book, and I have loved the book ever since I read it. It's another epistolary book, which means that it is a diary. Epistolary novels tend to be like newspapers, journals, diaries, just that style of telling a story. I know I'm going to find one someday, but as of right now, I have never found an epistolary book that I did not absolutely love. And Speak was one of those. So I have already read this, and I found a copy, so I have one on my shelves. I recently found Yes Please by Amy Poehler. Amy Poehler is a pretty awesome, funny comedian feminist. Surprisingly, I have not actually read this book yet. I've been wanting to for a while. Recently found a copy, so I'm going to go ahead and get through this, tell you what I think. Then, for the reading rush this year, I did try to start The Eternal Husband and Other Stories. Found I wasn't really in the mood. It's one of those, it's got like a lot of messages in it, and that wasn't the kind of reading that I was ready for. Also, this is a very interesting copy, because I also have The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and if you look at his last name, it is spelled wrong on the cover of this book. I'm not sure if that adds value to it, but I do think it's hilarious that I have a copy where his last name is spelled wrong. It's definitely something interesting to keep on my shelves. I don't know if I'm going to get to these anytime soon. I enjoy classics, but I still feel that I'm kind of not really a beginner with classics, but I'm still kind of sticking to the easier stuff. I also found a copy of Jane Austen. There's Lady Susan, The Watsons, and Sandishan. I do already have a copy of Lady Susan, but I got this one because of The Watsons and Sandishan. They're not stories that you hear of very often. You just hear about like her main books, so I think it's awesome that I have a copy of her two much lesser known books. I got another Toni Morrison book. This is Sula. I have not heard anything about this book. I've got like 6 of her books up on my TBR that I have not read yet. I didn't love Tar Baby. I really enjoyed The Bluest Eye. Beloved is the next one I want to read, and it sounds really nitty-gritty, so I think I'm going to really like it. But I haven't fully decided what I think of her as an author yet. And last but not least is another Stephen King book. I just want to say that I was so happy with myself when I found this book. This is Lacey's story, I think is how you say it. It's got the paper cover on it, and the shovel, this bottom part here, is cut out, and the cover is so gorgeous. Are you ready? Can you handle this cover? We'll see if you can handle this cover. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Look at this. Just the color and the detail. I love it so much. I absolutely love this. I don't know that I'm ever going to read this book. It's a story that I'm interested in, but at this point I'm just feeling kind of meh on Stephen King these days, because I really am very 50-50 on his books. I will probably read this eventually, but I'm definitely keeping it around because it's one of the most gorgeous books that I own. Like, officially one of the most gorgeous. Maybe even the most gorgeous. So, that is it for my summer haul. Let's see what this looks like. And I also just filmed my spring haul revisit. I did not do so good with reading all of the books in that spring haul, so I hope I do better with this one, because I need to stop buying so many books and start actually reading them. But we all know how that goes. We're here on BookTube. We collect books. We don't read nearly as many as we buy. Generally speaking. Not for everyone, but generally speaking. Okay. See if I can do this without crashing and burning, like last time. There we go. How awesome is this? This is probably going to be my thumbnail cover. I got it! Okay. Can I set it down? I set it down! Yay! Alright. Like, subscribe, be my bestest best friend, because I think I'm pretty awesome. So yeah. Also, I have cats and they're great and they're in a lot of my videos. See you all in my next video.